Hey, welcome to your deep dive. So you want to know how your self-image impacts your happiness. We're going to really get into that today based on the podcast episode 93, how our self-image impacts our happiness. It's really fascinating how much our thoughts, those mental perceptions can actually shape our whole reality.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is amazing how much power our thoughts have over, well, like our whole well-being, you know?
To start us off, can you explain what self-image even is?
It's not just a picture in your mind.
Mm,
Think of it more as an internal script that just plays in your head constantly. It narrates everything,
yeah.
your strengths, your weaknesses, what you believe about yourself, and even your potential. And it comes from all sorts of places. It's built from our experiences, our relationships, even the media we take in.
So it's not always right. It might not be accurate to who we really are.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting. Our self-image can be distorted by self-criticism, by pressures from society, or even past experiences, things that might not even be relevant anymore.
Okay, yeah, it's like when you buy a new outfit and you love it at first, but then someone makes a small comment, and suddenly you see nothing but flaws. That one little comment just changes how you see the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. It shows how external stuff can affect our self-image. And it shows that how we see things isn't always objective.
Okay, so we have this script in our head, sometimes based on old information or what other people think. How does this self-image, accurate or not, connect to our happiness?
Imagine you look in the mirror and you genuinely like what you see, inside and out. You feel confident and strong and like you can connect with people in meaningful ways. That's the power of a positive self-image. That feeling sets the stage for happiness.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like having this inner cheerleader who's always got your back.
Right. But when you're stuck with a negative self-image, it's like having this inner critic instead, always whispering doubts and fears. And it leads to self-sabotage, fear of failure, and just feeling not good enough. All of that chips away at your happiness. Have you ever noticed that in your own life? Like maybe holding yourself back from something because you didn't think you were good enough?
Oh, totally. I think everyone's been there at some point.
Yeah.
There have definitely been times when I let that inner critic talk me out of things,
Mm-hmm.
taking a chance, going after something I wanted.
Exactly. That's the negativity cycle in action. And the thing is, all that self-criticism actually changes our brains and makes us focus on flaws, which just strengthens that negative self-image. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, wow. It's like we're training ourselves to be unhappy. So how do we stop that? Where do we even start to change that script to something more positive, and supportive?
The key is self-compassion. Instead of beating yourself up over mistakes, treat yourself with kindness, like you would a friend. Recognize that you're worthy and start celebrating your strengths.
That sounds great, but it's hard, especially these days. Social media is always showing us perfect images. It's tough to feel good about ourselves with all that.
You're so right. Social media can really affect our self-image, and not always in a good way. We're always seeing these highlight reels that make us compare ourselves to unrealistic standards. It's easy to fall into that comparison trap. We see everyone else's best selves, and then we start judging our own behind the scenes.
Yeah, totally. It's like comparing your bloopers to someone else's finished film.
Yeah.
Is that why studies are showing a link between using social media a lot and having lower self-esteem?
There's definitely a connection, and it's not just about comparing ourselves to other people. Social media is designed to keep us hooked. Often through those little dopamine hits we get from likes and comments and stuff, it can become addictive. And when we start tying our self-worth to those external validations, it's a recipe for emotional ups and downs.
So how do we deal with that? How do we use social media in a way that protects our self-image and our mental health?
Well, the first step is awareness, recognizing that what you see on social media isn't always real. You can also practice gratitude, focusing on what you appreciate in your own life instead of envying others. And setting boundaries is so important. Take breaks from social media. Use that time to do things that bring you joy and make you feel good.
Yeah, like hitting the reset button on our minds.
Exactly. And speaking of resetting, let's talk about self-care. This is a huge part of building a positive self-image.
I think a lot of people see self-care as like a luxury, something they'll do someday when they have more time or money. But it sounds like it's really essential for our mental and emotional well-being.
You are so right. Self-care isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. It's about taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional health. So you can show up as your best self in all parts of your life. And it doesn't have to be fancy or expensive or take tons of time. It can be simple, like taking a few minutes each day to meditate or listen to your favorite music, or even just taking a walk outside.
Yeah, those small things that we can do consistently. And I imagine when we feel good physically and mentally, it's easier to feel good about ourselves in general.
Exactly. It's all connected. And here's another thing. When we don't take care of our own needs, it can actually make our negative self-image worse. It's like we're saying that we're not worth taking care of. But when we make self-care a priority, we send this powerful message to ourselves and to the world. We're saying that we value ourselves and our well-being.
It's like we're finally putting ourselves on our own to-do list.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And when you start treating yourself with that kind of care and respect, it has a ripple effect that touches everything in your life. You're more likely to set boundaries, go after your passions, and make choices that match your values.
Right, like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill your own cup first before you can give to others.
You got it. And that brings us back to the importance of connection. Being around positive and supportive people is another key to a healthy self-image. Spend time with people who lift you up, believe in you, and encourage you to grow.
Because negativity can be contagious, right? But so can positivity.
Exactly. Choose your circle wisely. Don't be afraid to distance yourself from people who constantly bring you down or drain your energy. You deserve to be around people who see your worth and celebrate your strengths.
It's like building a support system that feeds our souls and helps us become our best selves.
I love that. And remember, support comes from all kinds of places: friends, family, mentors, therapists, even online communities. The important thing is to find people who get you and make you feel seen and valued.
This has been so insightful. We've covered so much, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface of this topic.
You're right, there's always more to explore. But I think it's good to take a moment here and let all this sink in.
I agree. We've talked about the science behind self-image and happiness,
Mm.
and we've explored practical things we can do to change our internal narratives and create a more positive, empowered self-image.
And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Start with one small step, one positive thought, one act of self-care. Be consistent. And remember, progress, not perfection, is the goal.
I love that. Progress, not perfection. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up this deep dive into self-image and happiness. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back
Yes.
and ready to dive even deeper into this idea of self-image and happiness.
Yeah. And it all starts with becoming aware of that inner voice, that internal script we were talking about. Just notice how you talk to yourself throughout the day. Are you being kind and encouraging, or are you always criticizing yourself?
Right, like we're becoming observers of our own thoughts. It seems like that awareness would have to be the first step toward actually changing anything.
Exactly. Once you're aware of those negative thought patterns, you can start challenging them. Ask yourself, is this thought even true? What evidence do I have for it? Is there another way to look at this, a more balanced or compassionate way?
So we don't just accept those negative thoughts as facts. It's like putting them on trial, examining the evidence, seeing if they hold up.
Precisely. And a lot of times when we really look at those negative thoughts, we realize they're based on old beliefs, fears, or comparisons that aren't helping us anymore.
It's like cleaning out our mental closets, getting rid of those old clothes that don't fit anymore.
I love that analogy. And as you start to challenge those negative thoughts, you can start replacing them with more positive and affirming ones. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, try saying, I'm learning and growing every day. Or instead of, I'll never be able to do that, try, I'm willing to give it a try and see what happens.
So it's like reframing those thoughts
Yeah.
to focus on what's possible instead of what's holding us back.
Exactly. And it's not about pretending everything is perfect or ignoring the hard stuff. It's about focusing on what you can control, your effort, your attitude, and seeing challenges as opportunities to grow.
That's a big shift in how we see things. It's not about being fake positive. It's about choosing a more empowered way to approach things.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, it's a process, not a one-time fix. There will be days when those negative thoughts come back. The key is to be patient with yourself and keep practicing. The more you do it, the more natural it'll become.
Like building a new skill, it takes time and practice.
Absolutely. And besides challenging negative self-talk, it's also important to focus on your strengths. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What makes you unique? Take some time to think about these things, write them down.
Like creating a highlight reel of all our awesome qualities. Something we can look at when those self-doubt monsters come knocking.
I love it. And don't be afraid to celebrate those strengths. Share your accomplishments with people you care about. Take on projects that let you shine. Give yourself permission to feel proud of who you are.
I think a lot of us, especially women, are taught to downplay our achievements. Not to brag.
Hmm.
But it's not bragging to acknowledge our strengths and celebrate what we've done.
You're absolutely right. It's about owning your worth and sharing your gifts. And when you do that, you not only boost your own self-image, but you inspire other people too.
Yeah, it's like this ripple effect of positivity.
Hmm.
So we've talked about challenging negative self-talk and focusing on our strengths. But what about those outside influences, especially social media? How do we use it without falling into that comparison trap and feeling bad about ourselves?
It's all about being mindful of what you're taking in and setting boundaries. If certain accounts or types of content always trigger those negative feelings, unfollow or mute them. Follow accounts that inspire you, make you laugh, or teach you something.
It's like we're curating our own social media experience, creating a more positive and supportive online world for ourselves.
Exactly. And limit your overall time on social media. Set specific times to check it, and then log off and do something else you enjoy. Spend time in nature, connect with loved ones, read a book, work on a hobby. Those are all great ways to unplug and recharge.
Yeah, like a refresh button for our minds and bodies.
Exactly. And speaking of refreshing, let's talk about self-care. This is so important for building a positive self-image.
And we're back. I'm still thinking about all this stuff we've been talking about. It's really amazing how much our thoughts can change our reality.
It really is. And remember, you get to choose those thoughts. You're not just along for the ride, you're driving.
I love that. In the driver's seat, choosing where our thoughts go, and that leads to our happiness. But I think it can be hard to picture how this actually works in real life, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Sometimes you need to see a real example to really understand something. Let's think about that person you mentioned before, the one who's changed their self-image in a positive way. What differences have you noticed in them?
Well, she used to be so quiet in meetings, almost like she was afraid to share her ideas. But now she's way more confident. She really speaks her mind, and the team values her input. It's like she's finally comfortable with her expertise.
That's a great example of how changing your self-image can lead to real noticeable changes. She probably feels more capable now, and that confidence just shines through.
It's affecting her relationships too. She was always so hard on herself, apologizing for everything, even when it wasn't her fault. Now she sets better boundaries, and she's much better at saying what she needs.
That's really common when you improve your self-image. You start to see your own worth, so you're less likely to put up with situations or relationships that bring you down.
It's like she's finally letting herself shine. And the coolest part is, she's inspiring other people. Her coworkers are noticing her confidence and starting to do the same thing.
That's that ripple effect we were talking about. When we work on our own self-image, it creates a positive wave that affects everyone around us. It can even inspire them to start their own journey of self-discovery.
It shows that our self-image isn't just about us, it's about how we impact the world. So for our listener who's on their own journey with this, what's one small thing they can do today to start seeing themselves in a better light?
I would say pick one negative thought that you notice holding you back a lot. Maybe it's, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be able to do that. Write it down. Then really ask yourself, is this thought really true? Look for things in your life that prove it wrong. And then try to change that thought into something more positive and powerful. It doesn't have to be a huge change, just a step in the right direction.
It's like planting a seed of self-belief. If you nurture it, it'll grow into something amazing. And remember, you are worthy of love, happiness, and success. Believe in yourself, know your strengths, and never stop growing. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We can't wait to see you thrive